Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to touch on some of the details on Rod & Lynn's 1947 Buick. This is a complete build done here at Sanders Street Rods, and we're getting close to the finish line, so let's check it out. This Buick rides on a custom Art Morrison chassis. So it's got rack and pinion, coilovers, 4-bar rear end. It helps eliminate a lot of the stereotypical issues that you find with a convertible. A lot of times these old cars have what's called cowl shake. Basically everything in front of the doors shakes a little bit going down the road, and it's due to flex and movement in the chassis. I'm not saying that it is completely gone because we're still dealing with a really flimsy old body, but it's significantly better. That tightness in the chassis translates to really positive steering, and it allows the suspension to move like we want it to. That's a really great place to start. This was what's called a builder's chassis, so it's basically the wheelbase and the track width, and we set the body up. We put the chassis in the jig table, level it, square it all up how we want it, and then set the body on top of it and work the body down over the frame and make any modifications. We go through, build all the body mounts for it, and set up the wheelbase, everything how we want to see it fit on the frame, because there's no bolt-on frames that you can buy for this. So that's the process to get it done to this level. It's got a 1970 Buick 455 engine and a 700 R4. We did the Terminator fuel injection on this, like a CVF, belt drive, air conditioning, all that kind of stuff. This car was really rough when we got it. We got this car in boxes. It was in pieces. Denny had started on it maybe 25 years ago. Rod & Lynn started a business, life went on, kids, all this kind of stuff, and the car just sat. But they really had an attachment to the car. They wanted to see it come back to life and come full circle. We started the project several years ago, and we're given a car in boxes. So this car has more pieces on it than anything I've ever seen. There's multiple layers and how all the panels go together and all the trim and the stainless and the chrome. It's honestly impressive what they accomplished in 1947. This car came factory with hydraulic power windows. There was literally hydraulic hoses and a ram inside the door. Buick was putting a lot of effort into kind of being cutting edge, and that was really cool at the time what they were able to accomplish. This hood opens from both sides. But the reality of what they did then, the life that the car lived, and us getting the car in boxes, not knowing how these cars go together, really created a lot of challenges for us and the team to just get this thing even made whole again. I just can't emphasize it enough, the challenge that we had to overcome, going through manuals, sourcing parts, trying to find guys across the country, old wrecking yards and different things to get all these pieces together. And it's kind of funny, the best source I came across was from, there's an old magazine, the Buick Bugle, and I don't know how often it comes out. It doesn't, I'm going to say it's bi-monthly, maybe twice a year. I put an ad in the Buick Bugle. I sent them a check and a letter that had what I wanted in the ad. I'd never done this before. I'm sure 25, 30 years ago, this is what you did, but it was hilarious for me. I sent it in the mail, and sure enough, they cashed my check. The ad went in the Buick Bugle, and I had a dozen guys call me, and I created all these contacts and these guys that follow me on Instagram now, and we go back and forth. They've been following the car. It's kind of hilarious to see, but we found a bunch of parts that way, because that's just the reality of these cars, and the reality of the culture behind all this is you get to meet these people, you get to know people that really enjoy these cars and love them, and they've got these parts stashed away in their barn, and they hear about one being put together, and they're happy to be a part of that, and if they get to see it. So it's fun to see that whole thing come full circle, and how writing a letter and meeting phone calls and all this stuff has helped us get this car done. It's all part of the process of doing these builds and what you go through. So some of the pieces in particular, the chrome shop really had a challenge on this car, because a lot of these pieces have to be taken apart in order for them to be plated. So one piece in particular is this hood ornament. This ornament is specific to this car with this crossbar and the full loop around it, but this ornament is, it's 3 pieces. So this half comes off, this half comes off, it pulls out of the middle, and then the rest of this stays in place. So that means that had to be taken apart. It had to be stripped of the old chrome, had to be coppered, sanded, fit, plated, and then put all back together. But this is an original ornament, and it was able to be saved, and that was one thing that was important to rod on this, and it was cool to see that come together. The grill teeth in this is kind of an iconic look for these cars, and these were all banged up and damaged. We actually ended up buying a donor car, a donor coupe for this build. By chance, happened to be like 10 minutes away. It was kind of bizarre. The guy had it. I don't even remember how that connection came together, but we took some of the teeth from that because every single one of those teeth is different. So we were able to take some parts from that and get that all to come together. The bumpers were completely replated and straightened and everything. That was Chrome Shop again, had some work to do there. We were missing one of these spears across the tops of the fenders, missing trim. We had like 3 pieces of trim down the side of the entire car, so a lot of that stuff. So the windshield trim, this was all crushed. We had to find all new pieces for that. This windshield trim, of course, is specific to a convertible, and that's another thing about these cars. It's a lot of manufacturers would take a door and use that same door on an El Camino as they would on a Chevelle or something, or very similar at least. This car, every model, I swear, got a different door, a different length fender. They're all like, they look the same. You look at them, you think they would, but no, this door is 3/4 of an inch longer than a 4-door or whatever it was. And it was just, it's crazy. So like this little detail as it dips down into the center for that center strip, this little curve, specific to a convertible. So we can't use coupe windshield trim. These were originally a cable design with an arm, and they were so mangled and so destroyed. Brian built all new levers that we had. Derek then drew the lever after Brian made it out of cardboard or whatever it was, so we can make all that work and update it all to be linkage. So that all has to work and function within this. There's a little tiny chain inside there that goes to a gear that's then controlled by a lever. So like all these little things you don't even see that are a part of the build. When Denny originally started working on it, he cut the entire cowl out of this car and replaced it with another one because it was so rotted out. And that all actually fit pretty dang well considering all these converging panels and how everything has to come together at the end of the day. The skirts and everything, those were heavily modified. These pieces were all rotted out, so we had to cut the stainless off and replace all that stuff from the inside, fabricate these lowers, or fabricate, I think I had to make one of them entirely to get all these skirts to fit. The fenders were really hammered just to get all of these stuff to fit correctly around there, and it's a challenge. Just probably rambling a little bit now, but thinking back on all the times me and Doug or Brian just stood there looking at this car like, how the heck are we going to get through this? How are we going to make this look like it should? Most of the exterior of the car is pretty stock. I would say there's definitely things you could do to a car like this to refine it, but there's also, this is kind of a car where you don't really need to. The style of it is there. There's so much style, there's so much trim that we decided to just more or less leave the exterior alone, which I'm glad personally in this project. But some little things that we did is these were just originally reflectors. This is actually a light from like a 58, 59 Corvette. So it's LED now. So we fit that in there, put little lights in this too. That would have just been a reflector as well originally. Try to light up the back of this car a little bit more. We had to fabricate this entire rear panel, this rear bumper filler in between the bumper and the body. Really feeling pretty good about the stance right now. I think the back needs to probably come up a little bit, but the wheel and tire fit looks pretty dang good. I love having those side skirts on there. It just makes the back end look so much lower. They're pretty cool wire wheel that we had made for this car with the white walls, just really kind of classy looking. You still have to lower the rear end down, jack the body up, lower the rear end down quite a bit to get that tire out from underneath, you know, because it opens up to here with the skirt off, but you still got it pretty low. But we'll see. Hopefully it's drivable like this. We gotta be careful. A lot of opportunities to scrape. This hood opens from both sides, which is really cool. Like, wow, it's so nice, but it's so freaking hard to get this stuff to work. We've actually had other shops now reach out to us and be like, hey, we saw you guys were working on this Buick. How do you get this hood to work? And I'll try and explain something to you, but man, I don't know. You gotta maybe write the bugle. But it is pretty cool to see how it all works out. This hooks to a rod that runs all the way to the other side, and then it's off of a pivot. So as you pull this, the lever rotates and locks onto the hinge / latch. And those rods are flexing on us. And so we actually redesigned it, beefed them up, put more support in it, and it seems to be working out well for us. We're always trying to, you know, tighten gaps and everything. So we're trying to tighten the gaps, trying to make it fit really good. And then this thing has to open like this. So it's a constant challenge, but it all came together. We did have a little bit of fun under the hood too on this. The inner fenders originally had basically what was their air conditioning. So it had these big ducts that went back to the car and kicked a vent into the car that you could control from inside. that pulled fresh air from in front of the engine. All that stuff was so rotted out, so destroyed. With the Art Morrison chassis, we had different suspension clearance to deal with. We had a different core support that we fabricated, and it just didn't make sense to try and retain that old rotten stuff. So we decided to scratch build everything. They're relatively just a nice curved inner fender that comes and ties down into the chassis and wraps around the control arms nice. Then it finishes that gap and protects the engine from tire spray and stuff. We felt like we wanted to vent the engine bay a little bit, and I think it was Brian said we should put some of the portholes. For many years they had portholes, which was 3 chrome holes on the fender, and that was kind of an iconic look for Buick. So we took some from like a 51 Buick and put them on the inner fenders. It has a little bit of the same aesthetic, but it gives us a little bit of a vent from the engine bay to kind of draft some of that air out. Derek machined these valve covers. This 455, there wasn't a whole lot available from them that didn't look like they were from O'Reilly's. We wanted to kind of elevate it a little bit. So these are all custom designed and machined here. We do have these valve covers available on our website as well. So you can purchase them there. We can do custom engraving or whatever you like. They're made to order, so we got lots of flexibility with it. Feel free to reach out if you need some. 1970 Buick 455. This car was originally, it had a straight 8 in it. Gave us a lot of space in the engine bay, which was super helpful. That's where you see some of the writing on this, like Buick 8, a Super 8. So this would be a Buick Super 8 convertible, the 8 obviously being the straight 8. So we kind of played off of that and scripted the valve covers with Super V8 now. Also machined a matching air cleaner for it with kind of that same design in it. This is kind of a cool little trick. So this is a Buick emblem, original from this car, and you actually pop that up. It's magnetic. We've glued a magnet to it so it sticks down, but that's what covers the air cleaner bolt. And you can just slide that back in. Super clean little. A lot of the goods that make these a little more reliable, help them cool better. Got a high flow water pump on it. Electric fan, aluminum radiator, the Holley Terminator. Get that all tuned in. It should work out really well. Hydro boost, because we were limited on brake booster clearance just because of where the pedal came through. We did have to put a custom pedal set in this as well, just to make all that work how we wanted to. We're gonna bring it out to Good Guys in July. Fun to have it there, get to enjoy it with Rod and Lynn. Battery and ECU and stuff is all tucked behind the tire on that side, because like all these cars, they're big cars, but you do eventually run out of space. Kind of go inside now. Massimo just finished up the upholstery on this. He did the top, made everything inside, made the whole back seat. Turned out good. Nice kind of diamond pleating, not overly elaborate necessarily, but it was working on the Buick, so it was challenging as everything else has been, just getting everything to work. The dash on these cars is really slick. There's a lot of detail and shape to it. The gauges in particular were something that Rod and Lynn really liked. They're basically like a triple layer copper. We couldn't use the original gauges in this. They were worn out. They would have been completely refurbished. So we reached out to Classic Instruments to see if they were able to do that. And by chance, a friend of mine had gotten a set of gauges from them, so they knew what they were up against. I couldn't believe it. So they were able to make these gauges. So we sent them what parts we had, made entire new housings for them, and updated them all with electronics so that we could make them function better, a little more accurate, and work with some of the new stuff that this car has. So Riley Morris at Rocket's Garage, I actually drove out to his shop one time because he was building one of these as a coupe, kind of see how they go together and get some advice on parts and fit and different things that he was working on. So he's got his coupe all done. This one's just about all done. So I think we're gonna meet up at Good Guys, and it'll be fun to see these two cars together. You really don't see many of them out there. So he was the one that had these gauges built for that project, and so it worked out good getting another set from them guys. We didn't want to clutter up the dash with a bunch of extra switches because it'd be really difficult to complement what's already here and add to it. This was like the speaker grill, and then they had like custom switches for all the different functions on the center of this dash. So we were able to utilize most of what was there. So we took, we did make this the instrument lights. This is the headlights. On the new stuff, like the wiring harness that we made for this, the headlights and the instrument lights are in one. So we were able to break that apart and split up that wiring. This is a map light still, so it's actually illuminated there. On this side, we didn't use the blower or the heater because they're like treadle switches basically for variable speeds and for all the motors and stuff in the vintage era air conditioning. So those just got blocked off, but we do still have the 12-volt plug on this side. And then we just put the vintage air controls in the glove box. But that allowed us to leave the whole dash looking original. We also took a modern radio. This is out of like a 50s Chevy truck or something. The knobs, and none of this was made specifically for this. So we made this little trim piece around it, and Brian built some brackets to fit all that in there and make all the knobs work again. But it looks totally original. It's AM, FM, Bluetooth, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty impressive to see, you know, we had all this stuff chrome plated, but how all these pieces came together, and they were building these cars 80 years ago. Like it's unbelievable. As many of these parts as we had a hard time sourcing, there's actually a lot of the stuff that you can buy, which is really handy. Another cool thing, we had this steering wheel shrunk. So I think that is like a 15-inch wheel now, but originally this thing was huge. You couldn't hardly even get your leg underneath it between the seat. And there was no power steering, so now we've got all power steering and everything. So shrink that wheel down and get that ratio a little bit closer and make all that work. But they were able to, they made this entire new grip. They cut these bars, moved them in, re-welded them to the hub, molded this whole new grip onto it, and then we just had to paint it, chrome plated everything. So this is the original diameter of the horn button. So you can see how close it is here. We didn't want to modify that, but it doesn't matter. It still works totally fine. You just couldn't go any smaller without changing this. But yeah, this steering wheel must have been another 2 inches outside of that diameter. So that's all got a modern hub now for the GM column, because it's a tilt column and everything. So, but it all looks pretty correct for this vehicle. We did also do power windows, so they're electronic power windows now, but we had to build all the brackets and the stops and everything for that, because I could only imagine how problematic putting hydraulics in these doors, and how much these doors are already 200 pounds, and then you put a hydraulic ram in there. It's unreal. This is why where chivalry started, because you had to open the door for your wife, because she couldn't do it by herself. Derek got to do a little woodwork on this too. We had to come up with a new wood bow for this, and you can't just buy one. We had literally half of it because the other half was rotten. So Derek templated off of that and made that entire oak bow and bent it all and everything. It turned out really good. It's what you've got to do on these projects sometimes, get creative and make stuff. I also wanted armrests. So this is a split back bench, but they wanted armrests as well, just to kind of stabilize yourself in here. But nobody makes this, so we got these out of a minivan and welded the brackets in, and then, you know, we kind of did the easy part. We just fit them where we thought they would look good, feel good, and welded them in, and then we give it to Massimo, and he has to figure out how to cover this thing. And that was a real challenge, because typically when they build these seat covers, the back of the seat is finished. So they template it, they do all that, and then they slide the seat cover right over the top of the back and the foam and everything, and secure it at the bottom where you don't see it. But because this armrest doesn't go all the way to the top, he had to come up with a way to slide it over part of it and then secure and finish all of this in place. So I know he really had a challenge doing that, and I think he did a good job. But now they have dual armrests and a split back, so you can get into the back of the car easily that way while one person's still seated. Yeah, I look forward to driving this thing a little bit. Gonna put a couple 100 miles on it. Hopefully they can pick it up from Good Guys and drive it home to Oregon, a couple hours away. That's the plan. We really enjoyed the opportunity to build this car for Rod and Lynn. They're great folks, and it's been a great job for us. I appreciate you watching. If you like it, like it. If you have a question, ask it, and check back in for more videos of what we're building.